They laughed while she cried. My granddaughter's little head was bare, shining under the kitchen light as if her innocence had been peeled away. That was the moment I knew I had to take back control. My name is Rosa Hale. And before I tell you what happened next, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? I want to know how far stories like this can travel, because maybe, just maybe, you'll see a piece of your own family hidden in mine. It was a Sunday evening in early spring, that kind of day when the house smelled like roasted lamb, lemon, and laughter. My son, David, had brought his wife, Monica, and their daughter, little Elsie, to our family gathering. I'd set the table with the floral china I keep for special days. Nothing in me was prepared for what I was about to see. Elsie ran in first, or maybe ran isn't the right word. She walked quickly, head down, clutching her stuffed rabbit, and then I saw it. Her hair gone, all of it. Her scalp was smooth, almost pale, with faint red patches near her temples. The same curls I used to braid on Sunday mornings, gone like they'd never existed. I froze. My hands, still holding a tray of glasses, began to tremble. "Elsie, sweetheart, what happened?" She looked at me with wide, embarrassed eyes. Then she hid behind Monica's leg. Monica laughed, her tone light but sharp. "Relax, Rosa. It's just for fun. A little experiment. She wanted to look like her dad when he shaves his head." David chuckled awkwardly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "For fun?" I repeated, my voice trembling between disbelief and anger. "She's 6 years old." Monica shrugged. "It's just hair. It'll grow back." Just hair. But something about her tone, a flicker of triumph, almost told me it wasn't just hair. Elsie's small fingers tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "It hurt, Mama." Monica didn't even glance down. "Don't be dramatic, Elsie." A heavy silence sat between us, the kind that makes everyone suddenly interested in their plates, their cups, their shoes. I felt the air tighten. My sister coughed softly and changed the subject to something meaningless, but my mind was already racing. When dinner ended, I found Elsie sitting alone in the hallway, tracing circles on the floor with her finger. I sat beside her quietly. She whispered, "Grandma, Mommy said my hair had bad things in it." My heart stopped. "What do you mean, bad things?" "She said it was from you." My throat went dry. "From me?" Elsie nodded, solemn and certain, as children do when they are only repeating what they've been told. I brushed a hand over her bare head. She flinched. "It's okay," I murmured, though I didn't believe it myself. Later that night, while the laughter faded and people drifted home, I made a quiet decision. I wouldn't let her sleep there, not tonight. When David came to say goodbye, I stopped him. "She's staying here," I said simply. He hesitated, glancing toward Monica, whose smile froze in place. "Mom, it's fine. She's just tired." "No," I said again, this time firmer. "She's staying here tonight." There was something in Monica's eyes, not fear, not anger exactly, but a glint of something possessive, dark, like I just touched a secret I wasn't supposed to know. "Rosa," she said sweetly, "you're overreacting. It's a haircut, not a crime." I met her gaze head on. "Then you won't mind if she sleeps here." David sighed, torn, but in the end he nodded. "It's just one night," he murmured to Monica. When they left, I locked the door. I don't even remember doing it, it was instinct. Elsie was already asleep on the couch, her little chest rising and falling softly. I sat beside her, brushing my hand gently over her head again, feeling each tiny bump and ridge where hair used to be. In the stillness of that moment, I could feel the weight of something unsaid pressing down on me. A cold certainty settled in my chest. This wasn't about a haircut. This was about control, and whatever had taken hold of Monica's mind, it was reaching for my granddaughter, too. The house was quiet. The clock ticked like a heartbeat. I checked the locks again. And then my phone buzzed. A message from David. Please call me. Just 3 words, but something in them, the way the letters seemed to shake on the screen, made my hands go cold. That night, as I looked at Elsie sleeping under the soft yellow lamp, I knew the peace in that room was only temporary. Something was coming. The phone rang just after dawn, that gray hour when the world hasn't quite decided if it's morning or night. I answered before the second ring. David? There was silence. Then a sound I hadn't heard from my son since he was a child, the sound of him trying not to cry. Mom, he whispered, his breath uneven. Please, don't let them hurt her. For a moment, I couldn't speak. David, what are you talking about? Who's hurting who? His voice cracked. Just promise me you won't let Monica take her tonight, please. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the window where light was just beginning to slip through the curtains. Elsie was still asleep beside me, wrapped in a blanket, her small hand clutching the ear of her stuffed rabbit. David, I said slowly, tell me what's going on. He inhaled shakily. Mom, she's been seeing someone. This woman. Calls herself a healer. Says she can cleanse energy, remove shadows from bloodlines. He laughed bitterly. I thought it was just another online thing. Crystals, oils, but it's not. I said nothing. The sound of the refrigerator hum filled the silence. She told Monica that Elsie has inherited a shadow, something from your side. She said the child's hair was carrying darkness. That's why Monica shaved it, to burn it later. I felt the room tilt. Burn it? Yeah. His voice broke completely now. They already did. I found the ashes in a bowl. Monica said it was part of a ritual. She called it purification. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. David, listen to me carefully. You bring that child back here right now. Do you understand me? I don't care what Monica says. I can't, he interrupted. She'll lose her mind if she thinks I went against her. Mom, you don't know how she's been lately. She's not sleeping. She's different. She talks about spirits, about your family, about something we never finished. My family? I repeated slowly. David, what does that even mean? He didn't answer right away. Just a faint rustle, the sound of him pacing. Then quietly, she thinks you're cursed, that you passed it to Elsia. I closed my eyes. For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of the clock ticking, every second scraping against the walls of my chest. She said, what? She said your mother's death wasn't natural, that there's a darkness that follows us, that you never told me the truth about it. I wanted to scream, to shout at him for repeating that nonsense, but all that came out was a whisper. Your grandmother died of heart failure. There was no curse, David. I know, he said softly. I know, Mom, but Monica doesn't. She believes everything that woman says. I don't even know how to reach her anymore. I felt tears sting my eyes, not just from fear, but from something deeper, the slow realization that my son was trapped in a nightmare he didn't know how to escape. You listen to me, I said, trying to sound steady. You're her father. You protect your child. Do you understand? He hesitated. I'm trying. Trying isn't enough. There was a long pause, broken only by his quiet breathing on the line. Then, so softly I almost missed it, he said. I think she's planning something worse. My heart clenched. What do you mean? She keeps saying the ritual isn't finished, that the final step has to be done. Under the moon. I thought she was joking, but last night she packed a bag. She said she was going to take Elsie to see the healer again this weekend. Mom, I can't let that happen. I felt the blood drain from my face. You won't, I said firmly. You'll stay with her until I get there. I'll handle Monica myself. Mom, David, don't argue. Keep her away from that woman. I'm coming. He took a shaky breath. Okay, just please be careful. Monica isn't who you think she is anymore. The line went dead. For a long moment, I sat there, phone still in hand, watching Elsie stir under the blanket. Her lashes fluttered, her mouth forming silent words in her sleep. Outside, the morning had turned gold. But there was no warmth in it, only that quiet dread that lives in the pit of your stomach when you know the world is about to tilt. I stood, drew the curtains open, and for the first time noticed something strange on the windowsill, a small glass jar filled with ash. I hadn't seen it before. I picked it up carefully. Inside, mixed with the gray powder, were faint traces of something blonde. Elsie's hair. My hand shook as I set the jar back down. Whatever this was, it had already crossed a line. And then came the sound of tires crunching on gravel outside. I looked through the window. Standing at the gate, dressed in white and smiling faintly, was Monica. I watched her through the window for a long time before opening the door. Monica stood perfectly still at the gate, her white blouse catching the morning light, a small box of cookies balanced in her hands. Her hair was tied up neatly, her makeup soft and polite, every inch the image of composure. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. When I stepped outside, she waved cheerfully. "Good morning, Rosa. I thought I'd drop by. We didn't really get to talk last night." Her voice was syrupy smooth, like someone rehearsing kindness. "I think we talked enough," I said carefully. "Oh, come now," she laughed, walking past me into the yard as if it were her own. "You know I didn't mean to upset you. Elsie's fine. She actually loved her new look, didn't she?" I said nothing. From the living room window, I saw the faint outline of Elsie watching us, her little face pressed against the glass. I gave her a small gesture. "Stay inside." Monica followed my gaze and smiled wider. "She's been such a quiet little thing lately. I'm glad she's spending time with you." Her tone dropped slightly on the last words like a blade wrapped in velvet. I forced a smile. "Would you like some tea?" "Of course." Inside, she made herself comfortable at the table. I poured 2 cups, my hand steady even though my heart wasn't. The room smelled faintly of cinnamon and lemon, but under it there was something else, a faint trace of burnt herbs. I realized it was coming from Monica, her perfume, or perhaps whatever she'd used in that so-called ritual. She took a sip, then said lightly, "David told me you were upset." "I was," I said. "You shaved my granddaughter's head without asking anyone." She tilted her head. "I didn't need to ask. I'm her mother." I felt the words like a slap. "That doesn't make her your experiment." Monica chuckled softly, eyes glinting. "You think I'd ever hurt her? I'm trying to protect her, Rosa. You wouldn't understand." "Then make me understand," I said. She looked at me for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice wasn't sweet anymore. It was low, deliberate. "There's a stain in your family. I felt it the first time I walked into this house. Something unclean, passed down." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Miss Imani explained it," she continued, almost reverently. "She said some bloodlines carry sorrow like disease. You can't see it, but it grows in the children especially. It's why Elsie's been waking at night, why she's been sick. You've passed it to her." I set my cup down with a quiet click. "That's enough." She smiled faintly. "You can ignore it if you want, but I've seen it. When I washed her hair, she screamed not from pain, but from the evil trying to stay inside her. I had to free her from it. Miss Imani says we're almost done." "Almost done?" I repeated, my voice sharp now. Monica blinked slowly, her pupils wide. "The cleansing has 7 steps. The first was the cutting. The second was the burning. There are 5 more. Don't worry, I won't need your help." My stomach turned. "You're not taking her anywhere near that woman again," I said. She tilted her head, her expression calm, too calm. "You think you can stop me? I know I can." For the first time, the sweetness cracked. Her smile faded, revealing something underneath anger, fear, maybe both. "You've always tried to control this family. You made David weak, dependent. Now you want Elsie too." Her words hit deep, but I didn't flinch. If keeping her safe is control, then yes, I'll control everything. We stared at each other across the table, 2 women bound by love for the same child, divided by something far darker. After a moment, Monica stood, her face composed again. "You'll see. Once it's over, you'll thank me. You'll finally be free too." She smoothed her blouse, picked up her bag, and walked to the door. But before leaving, she turned and said softly, "Keep her tonight if you want. But she belongs to me, Rosa, and when the moon is right, I'll come for her." The door closed quietly behind her. For several minutes, I just stood there, Unable to move, the sound of the kettle's faint hiss filled the silence. Then I heard a small voice behind me. "Grandma?" Elsie stood there, barefoot in her pajamas, holding her rabbit by one ear. Her eyes were wide, still rimmed red from sleep. "She said she'll come get me when it's dark." My breath caught. "Who told you that, sweetheart?" "Mommy." The clock ticked. A gust of wind rattled the window pane. I knelt beside her and pulled her into my arms, whispering, "Not tonight, my darling. Not ever again." But even as I said it, a cold certainty spread through me. The woman who'd just walked out my door wasn't finished, not by a long stretch. And if I wanted to protect Elsie, I'd have to be ready for what came next. That night, the wind changed. The kind of wind that makes the trees whisper and the shadows stretch longer than they should. I hadn't slept since Monica left. Every sound outside made me tense. A branch scraping the roof, a car passing too slow, a dog barking somewhere down the road. Elsie was asleep again, curled under the quilt in my room this time. I'd moved her there after dinner, unwilling to let her out of my sight. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the hallway. I was halfway through checking the back door for the third time when I heard a soft tap. Then another. Someone was at the side entrance, the one that opened into the garden. My first thought was Monica. I picked up the flashlight and an old umbrella, the closest thing to a weapon I could find, and moved quietly through the kitchen. My pulse pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Who's there?" I called softly. A voice whispered back, urgent, shaky. "Mom, it's me." "David." I opened the door fast. He stood there, pale and disheveled, his jacket half-zipped, eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept in days. "What on earth?" He stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind him. "I had to come," he said. "I couldn't talk on the phone." "David, you scared me half to death." He rubbed his face, pacing. "I'm sorry, I don't know what to do anymore." I poured him water, watching his hands tremble as he drank. There was something haunted in his eyes, the same look I'd seen once before, when he was 16 and came home after finding his father's body. "Sit down," I said softly. "Tell me everything." He hesitated, then sank into the chair across from me. "She's not doing this alone," he said finally. "Monica, she's working with that woman, Miss Amani. You were right to keep Elsie here." "Who is this Amani?" He swallowed. "She runs these gatherings, calls them circles of cleansing. Mostly women. Lonely, scared, trying to fix something in their lives. She talks about purifying bloodlines, healing ancestral pain. Monica got obsessed after your birthday last year. She said she felt your aura was heavy. She thought it was her job to lift the family curse." I blinked. "Curse? What curse?" David looked down. "She said you'd passed it on to her through me, because of Dad." The air left my lungs. "David," I said slowly, "you don't believe that." He didn't answer right away, just stared at the floor. "When Dad died, you told me it was an accident." My throat tightened. "It was." He looked up, eyes burning. "No, it wasn't. You hid the truth. He killed himself, didn't he?" I froze. The room went still, the kind of silence that hums inside your ears. I hadn't heard those words in decades. "I found the note," he said quietly. "Last month, in an old box Monica was sorting through. He wrote that he couldn't fight the darkness anymore, that he was sorry for what he'd done to us." I felt tears blur my vision. "Yes," I whispered. "He took his own life. But you were only 9. I couldn't let you carry that. I was trying to protect you." David's voice cracked. "And Monica says that darkness, his pain, your silence stayed with us. That's what she's been trying to cleanse." I shook my head fiercely. "She's twisting your father's death into some kind of justification for her madness. There's no curse, David. There's grief. There's loss. That's all." He covered his face with his hands. I let her do it, Mom. I told myself it was harmless. The shaving, the prayers, the ashes. I thought if it gave her peace, fine. But last night, she said the next ritual needed a sacrifice. I didn't ask what that meant. My stomach turned cold. You didn't. He looked up, eyes desperate. I stopped her before she left. She said she'd come for Elsie, that you couldn't protect her anymore. That's why I called. I gripped his hand across the table. Then we stop her together. Tomorrow we go to the police. He shook his head violently. No police. If they think Monica's unstable, she'll lose custody forever. And if she loses Elsie, she might hurt herself. I wanted to argue, to scream that we didn't have a choice, but before I could speak, a loud knock rattled the front door. We both froze. 3 sharp bangs, then a pause, then 3 more. David's voice dropped to a whisper. She's here. But when I walked to the door and looked through the peephole, it wasn't Monica standing there. It was a uniformed officer. Mrs. Hale, he called. We have a report of a missing child. We need to ask you some questions. David's face went white. My hand gripped the doorknob. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Behind me, from down the hallway, Elsie's small voice called out, "Grandma?" And in that instant, I knew. We weren't just fighting superstition anymore. We were about to be buried under it. The police lights painted my front wall in slow flashes of red and blue. It was strange how quiet everything felt, like the house itself was holding its breath. I opened the door slowly, forcing a polite smile that felt like paper. "Officers," I said, "please keep your voices down. My granddaughter's asleep." "Mrs. Hale," one of them said, reading from a small pad, "we've received a missing child report filed by a Mrs. Monica Hale. She claims her daughter, Elsie Hale, was taken from her residence without consent." Taken. The words sliced through me like glass. David stepped forward quickly. "That's not true," he said. "She's safe. She's with us." The second officer, younger and nervous, adjusted his cap. "Sir, we'll need to verify that. Can we come in?" I hesitated. My mind raced through the possibilities. If they saw Elsie, would they take her? Could they even understand what was happening? But the law wasn't on my side, not tonight. I stepped back, nodding. Of course. They followed me into the living room. Elsie sat on the couch, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her shaved head gleaming under the lamplight. Her big brown eyes darted between the officers and me. "Elsie," I said gently, "these men just want to make sure everything's okay." The older officer crouched down to her level. "Hi there, sweetheart. You doing all right?" She didn't answer, just looked at me, waiting for a cue. "She's fine," I said softly. "Ma'am," the officer continued, glancing around the room, "did you bring her here tonight?" "She wanted to stay," I said. Her mother has legal custody," the younger one cut in, too eager, too certain. David bristled. "She's my daughter, too." "Then you'll understand we have to follow procedure," the officer replied. "Mrs. Hale," he said, turning back to me, "will have to take the child back to her mother's residence until this can be resolved through family court." No. It came out before I could stop it. It wasn't even a word more. A sound ripped straight from the part of me that still remembered holding David as a newborn. "Ma'am," the officer said gently, "I know this is difficult." "You don't," I snapped. "You don't know what that woman has done. She hurt her own child. She believes she's cursed." The younger one frowned, clearly uncomfortable. The older officer stayed calm. "If you have concerns about the child's welfare, you can file a report. But right now, we're obligated to return her to her mother." David's hands went to his head. "Please," he said, voice cracking, "just give us a few days." "I'm sorry," the officer said. Elsie whimpered when they approached. "Grandma?" I knelt down, taking her hands in mine. "It's okay, baby. It's just for a little while, all right? I'll see you soon." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't want to go with Mommy. She said the moon's coming." I felt every muscle in my body tighten. "What did you say?" "The moon's coming," she whispered. "She said I have to be ready." The older officer hesitated, looking at me uncertainly, but duty won over doubt. "I'll fix this," I told her, my voice trembling. "I promise you I'll fix this." As they led her out, she turned one last time, eyes wide, desperate, and then she was gone. When the door shut, the silence that followed was unbearable. It wasn't the kind of quiet that brings peace. It was the kind that rings in your ears until you almost hear screaming underneath it. David sat on the couch, burying his face in his hands. "I've ruined everything," he muttered. I wanted to comfort him, but I couldn't move. My body felt hollow. All I could see was Elsie's face pressed against the window of the police car as it drove away. Hours later, after they left, the house looked smaller somehow, as if a light had gone out. I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by the ghost of the morning. Half-empty teacups, a blanket folded over the chair, the faint indentation of her small body on the couch. That's when I saw it, a white envelope under the front door, slipped through sometime during the chaos. My name was written on it in looping, perfect handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a single sheet of paper. "You'll thank me when the curse is lifted." No signature. Just the faint smell of lavender and smoke. Monica's perfume. I sat back, the letter trembling in my hands. Somewhere inside me, the grief started to harden into something else. Something sharper, clearer. Fear was no longer enough. If the world wouldn't believe me, I'd find proof myself. And this time, I wouldn't be quiet about it. The next morning, the world felt empty. No birds, no hum of cars, no laughter from the garden. Only that hollow sound grief makes when it stretches into silence. I sat at the table staring at the note again. "You'll thank me when the curse is lifted." The words looped through my mind like a chant I couldn't silence. Something about them didn't feel random. Monica wasn't clever enough to write like that on her own. She was parroting someone who'd been whispering in her ear. That's when I remembered the name I'd heard months ago, back when Monica had stopped coming to family dinners. Miss Imani. She was supposed to be some sort of spiritual counselor. Monica had met her at a yoga retreat, or so she said. Since then, she'd been talking about energy cleansing, ancestral balance, and purging family darkness. At first, I thought it was just another self-help fad. Now, I wasn't so sure. I grabbed my coat, tucked the letter into my purse, and drove to the edge of town, where Monica said her sessions took place, an old 2-story house that looked more like a boarding school than a place of healing. The sign outside read, "The House of Renewal." The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of sandalwood and dust. The walls were lined with tapestries of moons, eyes, and serpents swallowing their tails. A soft hum of chanting came from somewhere deeper inside. Then she appeared tall, graceful, her skin luminous in the candlelight. "Mrs. Hale," she said, smiling like she'd been expecting me. "I wondered how long it would take you to come." Her voice was calm, too calm. "I'm here for my granddaughter," I said, clutching my purse tighter. "You filled my daughter-in-law's head with poison. Whatever you told her, it's hurting a child." Imani tilted her head. "Poison? No. Monica is cleansing the shadows that your family refuses to face." "By shaving a 6-year-old's head? By scaring her half to death?" Imani's smile didn't fade. "That child carries the mark of her lineage. You've seen it, haven't you? The dreams, the fever, the voices." Something in my chest turned cold. "How do you know about that?" I whispered. "Because it began with you," she said simply. "The night your husband died." My breath caught. No one knew about that night except me and David. I had been in the kitchen when it happened. My husband, Charles, had been drinking again, angry and unpredictable. We fought words sharp as knives. He stumbled, struck his head on the counter. I called for help, but by the time the ambulance came, he was gone. It was ruled an accident, but guilt is a kind of haunting that never really leaves. "What do you know about that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Imani stepped closer, her eyes dark pools of calm. "Monica came to me because she felt the weight of something she couldn't name. When I looked into her energy, I saw yours twisted with sorrow, soaked in guilt. You passed it on. That's why the child is suffering." I wanted to laugh or scream. "You're insane," I said. "You're preying on her grief, on mine." But inside, a small voice whispered, "What if she's right? What if all this darkness had begun with me?" Imani's tone softened. "This isn't about blame, Mrs. Hale. It's about cleansing the wound, but Monica acted too soon. The ritual was incomplete." My pulse quickened. "What ritual?" She leaned in. "The moon purification. The shaving is only the first step. On the night of the blood moon, the child must bathe in salt water to break the tie." My stomach dropped. "When is the blood moon?" Imani smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "Tomorrow night." I stumbled back, the walls spinning. "You're not touching her," I hissed. "Not ever again." She didn't follow. She just stood there, serene as I fled the house. Outside, the cold air hit me like a slap. I fumbled for my phone, calling David. "We need to get Elsie," I said, breathless. "Now, she's not safe. Monica's planning something tomorrow night, something called the blood moon ritual." He didn't answer right away. Then, in a cracked voice, "Mom, she's already with Monica. They let her go home this morning." For a second, I couldn't breathe. "She's what?" "I tried to stop it," he said, choking back tears. "They said I was unstable. They said I needed evaluation." The world tilted. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "Then we're going there," I said, my voice turning to steel. "Tonight." When I hung up, I caught my reflection in the car window, eyes fierce, jaw tight. For the first time in a long while, I didn't see a woman haunted by the past. I saw someone ready to fight. And this time, I wasn't afraid of what I might have to do. The moon rose red that night, heavy, swollen, and watching. It felt like the sky itself was holding its breath. David drove, his hands trembling against the wheel, headlights slicing through the fog that crawled over the winding country road. Neither of us spoke much. There were no words big enough for what waited ahead. When the GPS whispered, "You have arrived," I saw it. Monica's house, dimly lit, its windows glowing with a flickering orange light. Candles, always candles. I put a hand on David's arm before he could open the door. "Let me talk first," I said quietly. "She'll listen to me more than you." He nodded, though his jaw was tight with fury. We crept up the porch steps. The front door wasn't locked. Inside, the air was thick incense, smoke, something metallic underneath. The furniture had been pushed aside. Candles formed a wide circle on the floor around a basin filled with water. And there, kneeling beside it, was Monica. She wore white. Her eyes shimmered with tears and something else. Fervor, fear, madness. And in front of her stood Elsie, silent, her shaved head bowed. For a heartbeat, I couldn't move. She looked so small. "Monica," I said, my voice barely a whisper. She turned sharply, startled, and then her face hardened. "You shouldn't be here." David stepped in behind me. "Mom, what is this?" Monica lifted her chin. "A cleansing. You wouldn't understand." "Try me," I said. Her eyes flickered toward the basin. "Imani told me this is the only way to end the curse. It started with your sins. Rosa, with the things you never repented for. Don't you see Elsie's nightmares, her sickness? It's because of you." Something inside me broke and then strangely settled. "No," I said softly. "It's not a curse, Monica. It's trauma. Pain that was never faced, and now you're passing it to her." "She's not safe," Monica snapped, her voice trembling. "Imani said the shadows cling to children when their elders lie." "Imani said a lot of things," I cut in, "but she's gone now. I went to her." Monica's eyes widened. "I know what she told you. I know she filled your head with rituals and fear, but she's using you, Monica. She wants power. She doesn't care about Elsie." For a moment, Monica's face wavered, torn between belief and doubt. Then her gaze shifted to David. "She doesn't believe you. None of you ever did. You let your mother's guilt infect everything." David took a step forward, his voice cracking. "Monica, look at her. She's terrified. Is this what healing looks like to you?" Elsie's small hands trembled. She looked up at her mother. "Mommy, I'm cold." That single line shattered the trance. Monica froze, her eyes darting between us and her daughter. The red moonlight flooded through the window, washing the room in crimson. The candles sputtered one by one as if the air itself was tired of the madness. She needs warmth, Monica, I whispered. Not cleansing. She needs love. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. Then Monica's shoulders sagged, and the candle in her hand slipped to the floor, hissing out in a pool of wax. Her voice came out small. I just wanted to make it stop. David rushed forward, wrapping Elsie in his arms. It stops now, he said. And that's when Imani's voice echoed from the doorway. You think you can undo destiny? We all turned. She stood there, framed by the moonlight, eyes wild. You cannot silence what was awakened. Something primal rose in me, not fear, not rage, but clarity. I stepped between her and my family. I can, I said, my voice steady, because it was never destiny. It was us hurting each other, hiding behind curses and shame. Her lips curled into a sneer. You think truth will save you? No, I said, but it will save her. For the first time, Imani faltered. She looked at Elsie, the small, shaking child clutching her father's shirt, and something flickered across her face. Not guilt exactly, recognition. Then, without another word, she turned and vanished into the night. When she was gone, Monica broke down completely, sobs racking her body. I knelt beside her, unsure whether to comfort or condemn. In the end, I just touched her shoulder. You can start again, I said quietly. We all can. The next morning, the sun rose pale and gold, soft against the curtains of my kitchen. Elsie sat at the table, drawing with her crayons a picture of the moon, bright and smiling, no longer red. David poured coffee beside me. His eyes were tired, but softer. Monica had checked herself into a treatment center the night before. She asked me to keep Elsie for a while. I said yes. Elsie looked up from her drawing. Grandma, can I draw the moon bigger this time? I smiled. Make it as big as you want, sweetheart. When she bent back over her paper, the quiet filled with something warm, again, not quite peace, but the beginning of it. I looked out the window at the morning sky and whispered, it ends with me. And I meant it. That betrayal had lit a fire in me I never thought I had. And from its ashes, I found something better than revenge or relief. I found resolve.